Hi, Roy Moore here with the Scout Patch Auction, and this is part of a series of what I call Masterclass, Expert Class, where we can hear from the true authorities on some of our collecting areas in the scouting memorabilia. And actually, I'm dealing with Ron Aldridge here in Texas. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, Ron. He literally is the person who wrote the book on Order of the Arrow at national events, but also included in this video, we're going to talk about Order of the Arrow National Conference Committee, National Position Patches. As we were talking off camera, it's a specialized area, and some people may not, these are patches that aren't seen. And so the collecting interest is very focused typically for high-level Order of the Arrow members, people who've served on the National Committee. How'd you get interested in it? Well, we did a segment here on your national OA at national events.
Yeah.
How'd you that?
It was all part of making sure that I covered everything that was Order of the Arrow at national events.
Right,
And
the
you
national
can't
level.
leave out the National Committee, and you can't leave out the planning meetings that
meetings.
they have in December.
For those who don't realize, every year, well, it used to be every other year back in the 70s and 60s, but now they do it every year. In December is a planning meeting held in, and now currently Dallas, where all the section chiefs from around the country, the region chiefs, national chief come together. Actually, the national chief gets elected. And they look at what is the order they're going to do in the next year's event or the next couple of years' event. I don't have the first specimen here, they're covered in your book, but you can find these kind of patches that have these type of titles, National Committee, but they also have different borders, and they've changed over the eras. So like this is a 70s era fully embroidered, let's see on the back, 1990s it said. This design came into effect in the early 70s when we went to what we call the MGM Indian. What are some of the other ones you want to draw attention?
And this one actually exists with a gold mylar border that the founders of the Order of the Arrow, the two founders, Edson and Goodman, had that gold border, and they're the only ones that got to wear it.
Well, and frankly, until you did the research and documentation, I don't think anywhere in the hobby we had the reference material where, I mean, you tracked down that these borders,
Right.
that varieties of borders even existed. We were just
Here's a good example.
Yeah. So what is this? This is gold. So explain this one.
Now that is the National Conference patch for this era, 1986 NOAC, but that gold border was only allowed to be worn by the National Chief of the Order of the Arrow.
And what's
And just a few were made.
yeah, but again, it's easy to put different borders on patches, so they may have made 2 or 3 of these specimens. This examples are coming from our senior collector, so yeah.
There's a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, so and
This is the more common one.
your book reference what these differences represent, these different borders, but they're different maybe staff positions or national committee positions, but this is for the 86 NOAC, but it was around that era where we really did start to produce more patches for some of these events. Yep, and there's another one of the silver, those are all National Committee silver.
Right.
Well, yeah, gray border versus silver mylar border, very subtle. Again, very hard. We were talking again off camera that this is a specialized collectible for people to even see some of these patches because they are national office or national committee. But like Ron mentioned, the national chief patch there for the National Conference Committee, what he's got on this display board, and let's see if it gets in over here. For the 1985, we have, the wording is, where's my finger there?
1985 Trek.
Yeah. But
National
again,
Committee.
but that was for the gold border would be for the chief. So the wording, it looks similar to the committee patches, their staff patches for this 86 NOAC period, and it may have been used for a few years after, but the wording is different, and again, that was for the National Order of the Arrow chief. Talk about this one here, this pin. And again, this predates some of these patches, because this, what's the era?
1971.
Okay. So take a look at this. This is the National Conference, or National Committee, not conference, but National, yeah, okay, National Conference Committee pin, but look at how committee is spelled. When did you discovered this? I've never heard anybody relate to this before.
And there's only 2 or 3 known with the misspelling.
Notice it doesn't have a double T in there. It's T-I-E.
And our thinking is that this was a prototype. Ed Peace is the name on the pin, and he was the person in charge of the Order of the Arrow at that time. So it makes sense that his patch, or his pin rather, has the misspelling. It was fixed immediately. There was just 2 or 3 or 4 that survived of the misspelling. But the difference in value, of course, is huge.
Right.
The common one, spelled correctly, is a $100, $150 pin. The mistake is $2,000 or $3,000 pin. So that's a huge difference in value.
Well, it goes back to scarcity, supply, and demand. I will admit that the early years and the conference committee patches, again, I don't have the first one here. We don't have one right now on display. Goes back, what, the late 50s, early 60s for the big blue border one, the square rectangle, something like that.
Early years. I'm not even sure what year.
But they kept that patch for a long period of time. Now, and to our own blessing or curse,
They change them all over the place.
we are making all sorts of different issues, which makes it sort of fun to collect, but 2000 National Conference Committee, same design, 1999 Conference Committee, 2004 National Conference Committee, again, all same design, different border colors, 2004, slightly different lettering, but we have gotten a little more into the patch manufacturing business for some of the newer issues. But it's still, that makes parts of it are approachable, but generally the undated ones, the earlier ones are, the committee was smaller, the program was smaller, and they are harder to track down. The members of the committee tended to not be traders or not to circulate their patches around. Sometimes they passed them on to, I remember talking with Dan Ling, and he had gotten one of the red sashes, white arrow sashes from the National Conference Committee, or National Committee when he went on to the National Committee, and it was given to him, so he passed it on to the next guy that went on to the committee after him. So they sort of kept some of the stuff to the Assembly of Chiefs series. Again, National Conference Committee. Varieties of borders can exist for some of these. Get Ron's book as references. They've done this for a series, and there's some subtle variances, but again, we've got committee patches that are out there.
And there's several different ones.
Right. Yeah. Well, the differences are styles of embroidery. I mean, some of these are designed.
And the lettering's different, and the size is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they aren't all the same. What other things did you find as you were going through collecting and building this area that caught your attention or mind?
I think the important thing is that when you specialize in an area, you find things that no one ever knew existed, and that is exciting. And I think that's one of the exciting parts of our hobby, because in the early years, people did not view their patches as being valuable. They kept them as mementos. Some of them got thrown away over the years. Some of them got passed down to family members, and there are always patches to be found that have never been discovered before. And that is really exciting when you find one of those.
Well, actually, you pointed one out to me earlier here. This is a fully embroidered edition of the 50th anniversary. Actually, it's a sash emblem, but you pointed out this is a prototype of fully embroidered. As your research has shown that it's a prototype, a sample coming out of the national office as they were thinking of what to do. And you're saying 2, 3, 4 specimens are known, who knows how many.
Right.
That you've
And the partially embroidered one is the one they ended up with, which you'll see sewn on many old sashes.
Yeah, it was actually the first patch. Let's see if it shows up in the mirror here, but it was the, where's my finger? The first patch that was allowed to be sewn on a hors d'oeuvre sash.
Yeah.
And so it made that distinctive and something they did for the 50th anniversary of the Order of the Arrow. It's a fun collecting area. Ron's books are reference pieces for it. We don't know necessarily what's all is out there. You've done a pretty deep dive in trying to track down the earliest stuff. It's really keeping current with some of the newer pieces that might be coming out of the committee and stuff like that. Ron, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it.
Good day, folks.